to Lost World Minute, a minute by minute podcast reviewing the 1997 sequel to Jurassic Park 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And today we're here to discuss minute 63 of The Lost World. David, I've got to come clean and eat my words and apologise. A couple of minutes ago we were talking about the Jurassic World Lego game and how slavish we thought its designers stuck to the worker village and other sets and scenes from in the film canons. I couldn't be further from being correct. I sat down yesterday and I played through some of the parts of the Lost World section of the game, just exploring Sauna, mainly the trailer sequence and the village sequence, and they're pretty different. We won't go too far into the village stuff today because we're going to be talking about that a lot when we get to there at the end of the film, but
Yeah.
just placement of buildings, the air quotes killing shed that the team sort of Sarah and that escaped from the Raptors in. That's over beside the garage. Then there's another sort of similar looking building there on the opposite side where it should be.
It kind of looks like it's supposed to be the boarding house, but it's not quite.
Yeah. They all the buildings those three buildings sort of follow that artistic look of the kiln shed, where it's like planks with the cross beams. There isn't really a weatherboard or a timber double-story building like the boarding house, but
No.
But we said similar when we said we're talking about Trespasser last week about how the game designers may have got designs late. You're saying it sort of looked a lot like they referenced your map early on with the radio tower and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. I noticed on the worker village. An early error in my research was that there's this structure that I assumed was a radio tower. In reality, it's just a crumpled and bent over water tower. But Lego, I originally on my map I built a radio tower, and I know a lot of people have referenced that original tower in their own maps. There's one that I've seen on Jurassic Park Wiki. It's a 3D map. I can't remember the name he made it, but his watermark is on it, and he has a radio tower. And so it's definitely an error. It's my fault. I'm going to say sorry, everybody. I put a radio tower in Jurassic Park the Lego game. Oopsie daisy.
It just adds that sort of artistic flair and adds a little bit more to the structures. Like the gates going into the village are sort of around the side where the power plant should have been.
That I can see why, though, because the early concept art had them on an angle.
Yeah.
And so they didn't kind of get expressed that way in the final concept art, in the final village. But the concept art for the final design, I'd call it, had it off on an angle, kind of exactly like this.
Yeah, yep. Getting back to sort of what we know with the film at the moment, with the trailer sequence, it's sort of odd. You sabotage the hunter's camp and then you sort of take the baby Rex back to the trailer, and then the adults turn up, they remove the roof off the trailer and grab the baby out in their teeth and put the roof back and leave. And we get sort of the scene with all three of them, Nick, Sarah and Ian sort of sitting there with the dialogue about the interesting chapter in your book and that sort of thing. And then, hold on, this is going to be bad, it rolls and it goes over the cliff. And then you sort of pick straight back up with game players, Ian hanging from the rope below the trail, and you've got to climb up, avoiding obstacles that are falling at you. You get halfway up and then the front of the trail lifts off the ground and you've got to swap to a character up there and sort of hook the winch cable to the front of the RV and get in the M class and sort of drive. You've got to keep it straight, otherwise it fishtails from left to right, just like we see here in the film. And it's good fun, and it's just one of the best things about the game, especially if you're sort of free playing. I was doing all the M-class stuff as Robert Muldoon. It was just interesting stuff like that, like even being in the village as different characters, and it just sort of makes fun, like ziplining around the village as Dennis Nedry. It's just fun little stuff like that just makes that game so much better. Now we've seen there's been releases from Lego the last week or so about upcoming Fallen Kingdom set descriptions and that. I would love if they sort of make an additional level or side quest or something for Fallen Kingdom in the Lego game. I don't know if they can do that or if it's going to have to be a whole new game, but I definitely want something from Fallen Kingdom to be involved, Lego playable wise. But then stuff, and especially in the village, a lot of the set design looks absolutely fantastic. Just like the broken windows and stuff like that looks really crisp and clear and good. But then they sort of have to Lego it by, if there's something where a character has to interact or whatever, it's sort of built out of like Lego blocks and buttons and that sort of stuff. Same.
Of course, you got to remember it is a Lego game.
Yeah, and that sort of comes to the T with the trying to save the RV. You got to sort of get some parts, and you build a big winching system on the front of the RV that you hook onto, and
that's fun.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Halfway through saving it, the car breaks down, or the winch breaks down. So you need to be Eddie or someone with mechanical knowledge to be able to fix it. Then you get back in and try and save a day again. And then it ends with sort of Eddie, the T-Rexes, arriving again and ripping the roof off, just like they do in the film. And I'm pretty sure Eddie jumps out and runs into the forest. He doesn't actually. No one dies in the Lego games, of course. Like one funny one's Robert Muldoon in the first film. Like he gives the raptor a banana so he can escape.
Yeah. I remember in the trailer for it, we see the raptors actually give him like one of those fruit hats.
Yep. Clever girl. So, and that same sort of thing. The car and trailer go over the cliff and explode, and you get sort of the I'll say corny little gags of parts flying up past them and stuff like that. But that's more of next minute that we're going to talk about. But it's a fun game. We can talk more about the Lego game as we get further through. I did out of interest just check out the Jurassic Park 3 Section 2 of the lab, and it's another one of those things where it's sort of close, but it's not just there. You enter the Embryonics Administration Building, and the desk and all that's there, like the front office, but instead of going past that to a hallway behind like they do in the film and the set, it's actually on the left where you got that old open space and you see the shadow or the silhouette of the raptor run past. That's the entranceway into the lab complex, and it's just sort of little things like that. But once you get in, you got this massive hall with all the embryonics, robot arms, and that sort of stuff too, which is something I want to explore a lot more later on. It's a good fun game. I'm sure everyone's played it by now. If you haven't, it's probably pretty cheap on Steam, so go and find out and have a play through it. It's pretty fun. It doesn't take a lot of time.
Mummy! Daddy, you've got to come see this! I found something!
We had word on the 3rd of November that Iron Studios has been given or have acquired the license to produce official Jurassic Park products. At the time, I wasn't 100% or didn't really know Iron Studios. One of the designers working at the production team, like it is, Marcos, he posted in Jurassic Park the group the video for little teaser video, which is interesting, sort of inside a dark explorer with the voice of Richard Kiley, doing the whole Welcome to Jurassic Park scene that you hear on this interactive CD-ROM in the film, which I thought was a fantastic little teaser. It was only when I sort of went and sort of started chasing the news, reading what Iron Studios actually do. A lot of statues, human statues.
I know there's been speculation that there's possibly going to be some human not figures, but like statuettes from them. Because I know Chronicles dropped the idea of doing human figures.
That was interesting, and I was going to bring up. I wonder if there's a
coalition.
Yeah, that between Chronicles saying that we're not doing humans anymore to this, but it's the Jurassic Park license, not the Jurassic World license, which I mistook. Firstly, I thought, okay, they're going to bring out some Jurassic World stuff, and then they'll trickle out Jurassic Park products in the meantime. But no, this looks like they're going full Jurassic Park.
Yeah, they also said they have some full-size items. They didn't say what those items were.
Yeah.
But it sounds exciting.
It does.
They've if the job was to make fans interested, they've definitely done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've seen they also do. There are some props that they've done as well. Just looking at their Facebook page, so I know you can buy the kits to do it all, but I'd love a sort of an East Dock sign to sit in life-size stuff like that. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Um,
Or Raptor Claw or stuff like that.
yeah, was Chronicle still doing a Barbasol can, or did they stop that?
I have no idea. I heard that they were doing it, and then they've said nothing about it since.
Yeah,
Heard nothing about anything they've done in a long time.
yeah, because we've seen one or two new things at New York Comic Con, I think it was, in the
Yeah.
booth there, but there was no. I can't recall seeing a Barbasol can.
No.
I know the night vision goggles they've been trying to push.
Goggles they had.
Yeah. And of course, sort of like the Owen and Blue statue was something they've been trying to push as well, but I don't know where that is at the moment.
No.
Because they had Chris Pratt gave it all the all clear sculpt wise, so there shouldn't be any reason why that's not still coming out. And it'll
I
be
even actually I did hear I can't remember who I heard it from, but I heard a rumor that they may have actually be removing Chris Pratt from the Blue.
interesting.
It's just something I heard.
Yeah.
Like Chronicle doesn't want to do humans whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's a real shame.
Yeah, it is. I was looking forward to their 1/6 stuff, and even the design team have been on various podcasts sort of talking about what they wanted to do, and they'd come out and said they'd love to do the full Jurassic cast, Hammond, Muldoon, Nedry, sort of, and do the whole in 1/6 sort of stuff, and I was very excited. Me while it wasn't, but I think we talked back in one of the very early episodes about when they were sort of announcing they wanted to do all that stuff on the podcast, and it's just sad that now it looks like it's not going to happen. And then now all of a sudden, Iron Studios is coming in and say, "Yep, we do human characters."
Mm-hmm.
Because
they got a really cool looking The Last Jedi Luke Skywalker figure.
Yeah, plus they got some of the Marvel Hulk and Thor from the new Ragnarok as well, which look fantastic.
I just like that Jurassic Park is finally getting, as a franchise, is finally getting some love that it really deserves. Because I mean, we've coming out of a period where there's just so much merchandising or bad merchandising or no merchandising at all, really.
Well, we kind of said the same thing when Chronicle got the license too, but if you're after busts, that's fine. Like some of their busts, the sculpting looks nice. We've talked about the Breakout Rex paint-wise and that sort of thing before.
Yeah.
And other figures, like I'd still love to get a compy or two or three. I never ended up. I never ended up jumping on the baby raptors. It was just something I couldn't do financially at the time, which is going to kick me in the butt later because I'm not going to be able to get them for a reasonable price. But
no, that's going to resell high.
Yeah, that's sort of too high a collector's market for me. But these statues look fantastic, as you said. Like the Luke that we can see here is sort of he's not just a standing figure. He's obviously on some sort of base with one they lifted it slightly. And the sculpt looks fine. It sort of looks a little bit cheaper than what maybe a Hot Toys figure might be, but that's good because that way you don't have to pay Hot Toys prices.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think that's kind of what I expected from Chronicle in the first place. Was like when they announced they were doing 1/6 figures was Hot Toys. That's what was my first thought. Was oh well, we're finally going to get some Hot Toy stuff.
Mm. And they'd actually said
Hot Toys Jurassic Park stuff.
Yeah, and they'd said in sort of interviews that they need to sort of cap it at the Hot Toys price, otherwise they wouldn't be able to sell as many of the figures. One other thing too, before we move on, the Chronicle have said too when they got the Jurassic license, it was for Jurassic World. They were told to make the Jurassic World stuff, and then it's sort of the last. If you've got time to do Jurassic Park stuff, then you can go and do that. But they've been doing a fair bit of Jurassic Park stuff and not really a lot of Jurassic World stuff, so they'd be focusing more on that. But it's just great to see that Iron Studios have got this license. Their products they've done before look fantastic. I'm going to go and check YouTube for some reviews to actually see some in the flesh, and
Yeah.
or see some on review tables anyway, and
Hmm.
see what comes of it. But exciting times, definitely.
Oh, and actually, we just got news from a friend of ours who works on Jurassic with us. Looks like they just Mondo. I'm sorry, I'm not. Mondo News is just announced that, or Synapse News is the one who's announcing it. Is announced at MondoCon in Austin, Texas, that we're going to get a new board game, Jurassic Park, yeah, the Chaos Gene.
Oh yeah, I've just found here. Yeah, MondoCon Austin, Jurassic Park, the Chaos Gene. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the
Very
board.
interesting.
Yeah, I've got the board games from all the films, so this is definitely something.
Did
Definitely.
Jurassic World have like its own theme board game, or was it Monopoly? I
Oh,
can't remember.
oh yeah, I don't have the Jurassic World one. I was talking about the original trilogy. Yeah, you caught me out there.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like the sort of decayed Jurassic Park font on the.
Yeah, I do too. It really fits in with the whole Fallen Kingdom theme being a bit, what's the word? I don't want to say rip-off of The Lost World, but it kind of
Just the abandonment.
references it.
I wonder if the Chaos gene is the gene that allowed them to breed or change sex.
I don't know. That, I'm not sure what it's referencing, but that could be very well a possibility.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's something else we can look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently it's going to be either later this year or the next year.
Okay.
I imagine more the next year as a Fallen Kingdom merchandise.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is great because we actually haven't had a true board. Unless Jurassic World came out with one, which I can't remember if they did, or if it was just a Monopoly game.
Yeah, I can't remember seeing one at all.
So it'd be the first one since 2001 when Jurassic Park 3 had theirs.
Yeah, I got that one.
Yeah.
But it'd sort of be.
I played all the time.
Yeah. It'd
I
sort
got
of
to play it, but the figures were fun to play with. I think we played it all the way through once.
Yep.
Actual play.
Well, that's the same with the Jurassic Park and the Lost World one as well. You sort of open it up and put it together, and it's like, okay, how do I play it? The Lost World one, interestingly too, is another one of those products made before the film was released. So it is a lot of that expanded worker village, the 13 buildings, in the gameplay, which is sort of a nice little set you can have. Of what the village might have looked like, but yeah, that's we're going to learn more about that in the coming months. The Iron Studio stuff, apparently there's a local Comic-Con in December, which they're going to have some of their first products on show there, so I cannot wait for December.
Oh, yeah, that'll definitely be great to look forward to.
Yep.
No answer. What a surprise. How do I get down?
Tie this belt around you.
Where are you going, Dad? Can't you stay here? Come on, stay here, Dad, please. Dad,
Squeeze
where are you
this
going?
rope hard. The harder you
Hello?
squeeze, the slower you go.
Hello?
You
Where are
don't
you
squeeze
going?
at all.
I get the idea.
Personally, I would have squeezed just a little bit harder.
Alright, ready to get into 63.
Sure.
Alright. As we ended the 62nd minute of The Lost World, Eddie was trying desperately to save the RV. As we start minute 63, we cut back inside the trailers as Sarah climbs the rope, but loses her grip, and she slides down, taking Nick and Ian with her, and they dangle several metres below the trailer, out in open space. At 63 minutes and 14 seconds, we cut back up to Eddie in the M-Class, as deep footsteps begin to be heard. Eddie stops pulling on the RV and puts his head out the window and listens as the footsteps get louder. At 63 minutes and 19 seconds, we get a shot in front of the M-Class. It's first the male, then the female Tyrannosaur come back onto the scene. Through the gloom of the night, the male drops its head and sniffs the driver's side door, seeing Eddie inside the car. Eddie guns the engine again, tyres sliding, trying to keep the car in the one spot. At 63 minutes and 33 seconds, we cut to a view through the male's jaws, as they open and it roars. At 63 minutes and 40 seconds, Eddie looks over to the passenger window as the female lowers its head, and we get that nice big beautiful eye look in through the window, straight at Eddie, and blink. At 63 minutes and 41 seconds, the male's head comes down and crashes through the roof of the M-Class, gripping it, lifting, and tearing the roof away in one foul swoop. It throws the roof aside and lunges down again, swinging its head sideways, taking out the driver's side door, as Eddie ducks down below the steering wheel. Now seated in the passenger side of the car, he keeps his foot on the accelerator pedal and realises the Linstrade air rifle is right beside him. At 63 minutes and 59 seconds, as he struggles to get the rifle free of its entanglement, the male comes down again and grips the driver's seat of the M-Class and rips it from the car. The airbag deploys. And this ends minute 63 of The Lost World. We cut last minute to back inside the trailer as Sarah and team are starting to keep on, still climbing the rope up, but she loses a grip and slides down the rope and taking Nick and Malcolm with her, and that's got to hurt your hands. Wet rope sliding down like that. Yeah.
I remember in elementary school. I'm not sure if they had that over in Australia. We had to climb the rope. Mm-hmm. You guys had to climb the rope when you were kids in school?
No, not in school, but when I joined the army, there was a lot of rope climbing.
Yeah, I'm sure. I imagine.
Yeah. And I learnt all about gripping the rope properly. It's great too because when they sort of slide down, you get Ian sort of vocal ADR work, and they're just like an all a ball at the end of the rope.
What's sad is I'm watching this. I just keep going back and rewatching it on my screen on silent. And is it bad that I can hear? I've seen this movie too many times that I can hear every single sound effect, musical cue, and bit of dialogue, even though it's on silent.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's only a problem when you're watching it with people that haven't seen it as many times, and you're sort of telling them what's about to happen, or it gets annoying. Apparently.
Well, it gets annoying when people watch it with me is I give them all the behind-the-scenes facts, and they're like, stop ruining the magic for me!
Well, I don't think... I'd love to go and see it in the cinemas now, but I wouldn't be able to go with anyone because it'd be just that. it'd be talking through the whole film. It's like, we paid to come and watch it, not come to listen to you give comments on it.
We pay for director comment or fan commentary.
Yeah, yep. And we cut to a sort of a shot up looking down past the trailer as them all in their ball at the end of the rope, and it's just great that you got the rain sort of glistening off the wet trailer, a heap of water running over the cliff as well down beside them.
Oh yeah, it's like a straight up waterfall just flying over the cliff there.
Yeah, yep, and the waves crashing below as well, which is great. Then we cut back to Eddie in the M-Class. He's not really pulling on the trailer, but he's sort of tugging on it and bouncing, which isn't the best for the winch. That sort of can damage him pretty quickly, but especially if
plane will pull it right off the front of the truck.
Yeah,
no?
Yeah, or break the cable. Especially before when he was winning, he was pulling the trailer back down with keeping force on the front of it. I don't know how it went from that to jerking, because you'd think every time he backed off to pull again, the trailer would slide back to where it was before. But
but I don't know, maybe it got caught up on the edge of the cliff there when the tires blew out.
Well, there's the other question. Okay, we've seen the tires and the front of the section of the trailer pulled back up on top of the cliff. You're not going to be able to drag the trailer up over the cliff's edge. It's hanging down. You're only going to be able to pull so far, and that may be where it is now. It's pulled to the point where the tow hitch and the accordion connector are hard against the cliff's edge, and it just won't come anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
But we get the ominous thump over the sound of the car revving again.
Yep.
And Eddie stops and puts his ear to the open window of the car and sort of listens and stops what he's doing. And the two Tyrannosaurs return.
Now, something I like you can see when the T-Rex are about to come up on the side. You can see a box that was on the M class that had went over the back of a box that was on the back of the M class that went over the cliff. Sorry, a little bit of a tongue twister there.
Well, even earlier in the last minute, I didn't really mention it, but when when Eddie's sort of drifting side to side in the M class trying to pull the RV back up, a couple of containers actually fall out of the back of it onto the set as well. But we get the male sort of emerge first out of the haze and come around to the driver's side. The female comes out just a little bit later and goes around to the passenger side of the M class. And it's just
I've always loved this shot of the two of them together.
Yeah, yep. It's sort of, I just love it sort of a HD screen cap of it just blown up on the wall. But it's sort of hard to judge where, either them just starting to emerge from the darkness or of them sort of when they finally get to the M class. You could take like several frames of film, you could take any one of them and it'd look fantastic blown up on the wall.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But we get a real nice close-up of an animatronic male here too, as it lolls its head down at Eddie's door and starts to sniff.
Yeah, and I like that they brought back that effect, that kind of vapor effect that they used in the first movie with the female T-Rex.
Yep.
Animatronic, where we see the vapor effect come out of the nostril, and in the first movie it hits Alan Grant's hat and blows his head off, which it wouldn't do in reality, but that's another movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great that they brought that effect back, and I love that you see this close-up shot, and it's like I want to see the face, warts and all, you know?
Yep.
Because you can see those little bumps all over the snout.
And it again adds to the animatronic work of just having the nostrils act as it's breathing.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a great effect that Stan Studios included. Adds a real amount of lifelikeness to these animatronics.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with the eyeball being able to pivot all the way, like move around, the whole skin and sort of the effect of the eyes opening, eyes closing, squinting, that sort of effect as well.
Or even the eye being radio controlled so that they can dilate the pupil.
Yeah, yep. And it's still one of my favourite scenes in sort of Jurassic Park, where the Rex lowers its head down beside the Explorer and looks through and looks around, opens, like blinks, and then pulls its head back up. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it does. And then we get that nice callback again here when he looks over to the female and she opens her eye and the pupil dilates.
Yeah, yep. Then we cut back to the driver's side and the male's got its head still down there, and we get that great shot through its jaws as they open and it roars, and you just see Eddie's face, and it's just like, he knows. he can't do anything here. But
it's a great bit of camera work here where it almost makes the head look bigger than it really is.
Yeah.
The eyeball is really no bigger than a man's hand, but here it almost looks like the size of Eddie's head. You know?
Yep. And with these jaws open, it just looks like it could engulf the whole Explorer.
Oh yeah, that whole eyeball is just glaring into Eddie's car.
Yep.
Now a lot of people, I think, say or question why the animals return, why the T-Rex returned to finish off Eddie, and my answer was always that, I mean, he's sitting there revving his engine, making all sorts of noise and smells, and that's going to attract these big predators. Of course it's going to attract these big predators. They just left the scene and toppled what they thought was a threat to their infant. And then here comes Eddie making more noise and smells and blowing exhaust everywhere and burning rubber. Of course that's going to bring them back, you know?
Yeah, well, the cars, well, the Explorer, especially in the novel, was an electric car. The RV was electric as well. That's not the case here. We've seen before with engine noises being heard, and definitely here when he's sort of trying to save the trailer, you can definitely hear the V6 engine in there revving as well, and it sort of goes hand in hand with why did they leave in the first place when they didn't finish the trailers off And now all of a sudden coming back, yes, there's a lot more noise. The lights sort of shining everywhere as the car's going back and forward. There might have been something that drew the T-Rex away to start with, and now they're just returning because of the noise again. But I don't think it's, unless we get a interview with Steven, Mr. Spielberg, I don't think it's ever going to be addressed. It's just another one of those things. It's probably on the cutting room floor somewhere. It's not. There's nothing mentioned in the pre-San Diego script at all. Unlike we see Malcolm sort of leave the trailer and see that the Rexes are coming back for when they roll over and attack him. But there's nothing really involving this scene.
No.
But they're back, and they're going to finish what they started. The male comes down and sort of bursts his head down through the sunroof, which is another little callback to Jurassic Park, and just grabs the whole rear section of the roof and lifts it off the car.
Now, in the storyboards here, originally the T-Rex would grab the back of the car and lift it up, in which case Eddie would press the gas and give the male T-Rex some tire burn, I guess, on his tongue.
That was interesting because the male sort of reaches down, grabs the rear tyre or the rear of the car, and Eddie's gunning the engine to try and keep the car in place. Of course, when the rear wheels are lifted off the ground, the whole car starts to roll forward under the weight of the RV, and the female actually puts her foot on the bonnet. And we'll see next minute, especially when they remove Eddie from the car, her foot's on the front of the bonnet of the car. Which sort of we don't see.
That was a practical foot, and I wonder if that was the foot that Stan Winston Studios used to make all the footprints all around.
Yep, it's quite possible.
Now, interesting thing here is that it's a great point to make an analysis of all of the T-Rex attack patterns, because we see here that if the T-Rex wanted that back in the first movie, when the T-Rex are attacking the kids, if the T-Rex wanted to get in there, she could have slammed her nose, ripped the frame right apart like the T-Rex does here, and just go get him, which I think she does actually in the book. I think she rams her head into the front of the car, and Tim describes being able to feel the female T-Rex's hot breath in the car.
Yeah, well, it snakes its tongue in and actually wraps around Tim's face, and he nearly loses consciousness.
No, that was later in the book when he's...
Oh, at the waterfall.
Yeah, the waterfall.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we get adapted in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, poor Burke. We'll get there. But it's another thing, too, here where the male rips the roof off. That's why the M-Class probably didn't have any other windows in it, apart from the front window and the sunroof, or the skylight on the roof of it. Just so you haven't got all that sort of debris raining down on the actor. And it's funny too, we got a couple more little snippets from the Richard Schiff interview from the Jurassic Cast podcast that we're going to play and sort of look in a bit more in 64, but he was actually saying here how Spielberg wanted the stunt guy to be in the car when the roof's ripped off, when the door's ripped off, and when he's pulled out of the car. But because obviously here we see several shots of Eddie's face, it just didn't look right with the stunt guy there. So Eddie insisted that Richard insisted that he'd be in the car up until the point where he's pulled out, because they wouldn't let him do it. They even had sort of questions about the stunt guy doing it just because of the position you're in when you're being pulled out. They didn't want to break anyone's back or anything like that, because again, 9,000 pounds of animatronic here.
But you can't actually see them practicing this effect here in the behind the scenes when and that was always one of the first iconic shots that stuck with me with the when we first got the behind the making of VHSs.
Yep.
Was the shot of the stunt double in that back brace being swung around by the T-Rex animatronic, which at the time was unfinished.
Yeah, and it's something we go into it next minute too, and just how they slowed the footage or slowed the filming down of it to almost a slow motion, pulling out just so when it was sped back up, it looked real time.
Yeah, because in the making of book, they described how they couldn't see Richard Schiff because they were all hidden behind the foliage here.
And that's what he says.
The fake foliage.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
that's what he says in the interview too. So the animatronic guys are sitting there acting with the dinosaur, either looking at a little tiny screen, computer screen, at the video from above of what the animal's actually doing, or they're hidden somewhere and they can't actually see real time. And they got to bring this head down from the male and grab an actor on the knee, on the leg, and pull him out of the car.
That's what they say in the making of too, that they had to film the entire scene from behind a 12-inch video screen.
Yeah, yep.
Which, I mean, I couldn't even imagine doing that. My computer screen's bigger than that.
Yeah, yep.
You know?
Yeah, just that's your whole world. That's your view of everything you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings us back to what the male's doing here too, because it sort of throws the roof to the side, and it comes back down with its head and swings its head, pretty much removing the driver's door off the car as well. Which again, Richard Schiff was saying here, he's in this car with the door was obviously made to be able to come apart and that, but the animal's actually hitting the car and doing this damage. And his faith is in some animatronic puppeteers behind shrubs or hidden away, looking at a little screen, hoping they don't swing too far one way or the other, which is just amazing. But Eddie sort of climbs down behind the steering wheel, between the steering wheel and the passenger side door, keeping his foot on the gas pedal, of course, trying to keep the weight on the front of the trailers, which makes me think the female hasn't put a foot on the front of the car yet. Or he just doesn't know that she has, and having the foot on the pedal won't really help at all. But he did notices that he's got his little in-straight air rifles sitting there on the passenger seat as well, which he starts trying to pull out to obviously use in defence. Which they're not going to kill the dog. There's no way he would have been able to get that rifle out and fired, killing one or both Tyrannosaurs if that was the case. I think The Lost World would probably get a lot more fan hate than Jurassic Park 3, maybe.
Yeah, really. Even if he was able to, though, there's still the chance of one or even both falling on him.
Yeah.
Falling on him?
Yeah.
That's 12,000, that's, 18,000 pounds landing on him. Times 2, possibly.
Not just that, too, that car's the only lifeline the trailer's got of stopping from going over the cliff, so if anything happened to it, like if they rolled it or something when they were falling, it could have jeopardised the whole thing. Now, I suppose it was set up earlier when they were on the barge arriving at the island that it was a kill weapon, not just a tranquilizer rifle. Maybe it was just a tranquilizer rifle and they knocked one of the Tyrannosaurs out, but then with the hunters arriving on the scene, they'd have their catch. So
no, it was definitely a kill rifle. Richard Schiff made it explicitly clear here that if Ian Malcolm were to shoot himself in the foot, he'd be dead before he even had realized he had an accident.
Yeah, and it's one of those the bigger problems I've sort of had with the films. You don't really see, and I suppose you don't really need to see dinosaurs shot. They're not that type of film, but if you're going to have a Spaz 12 or a gun like this that can kill, you sort of need to show it on something, even if it's another person, maybe. See someone shooting themselves in the foot or something, or it ricocheting off a tree and hitting someone in the neck, or. But he can't get it out anyway, and the male comes down again and bites the driver's seat and rips the seat out of the car, setting off the airbag.
Yep.
And that's where the minute ends off. But it's just, again, great seeing the animatronics sort of acting. We talked a couple of minutes ago about whether or not that it was actually the T-Rex nudging the trailer and making it rock. seeing what the male's doing here, it's more possible than not that the animatronic itself was actually interacting with the vehicles and the destruction here.
Yeah. No, it's when we see the hood here, I think you can actually see that the female, and this kind of goes in the next minute too when the male lifts up, but the female's still back in the foliage.
Oh, okay.
She hasn't moved up to actually be in the she hasn't moved up and put her foot on the hood yet.
Okay. All right. Well, that's 63. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here for today?
No, I think we're good.
Lovely. All right.
All right, guys. Let's get the hell out of here.
Contact details are on the website, thelostworldminute.com. You can email feedback to thelostworldminute@gmail.com, Facebook, The Lost World Minute, Twitter @thelostworldminute, and Instagram, The Lost World Minute.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, very easy to remember. David, thank you for joining me for this record.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back. I've been Brad.
I'm Dave.
And we'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
It is absolutely imperative that we work with the Costa Rican Department of Biological Preserves to establish a set of rules for the preservation and isolation of that island. These creatures require our absence to survive, not our help. And if we could only step aside and trust in nature, life